Hello and welcome back to my Kerbal Space Program tutorial. In this video we're going to learn how to get to the Mun and how it intercepts and all that good stuff. So as you can see right now it's kind of dark around in the Kerbal Space Center, and that's because, well, if we go into the tracking station we can see the map view, and currently we're in darkness. So if I can time warp from in the tracking station to advance time until we get to the light. That should be pretty good. So now it is almost morning. You can see shadows being cast upon the buildings. Anyway, so we still have 162 science and quite a fair bit of money, but and so in this episode we're going to work on getting to the Mun. So, well, what are we going to need? We have 162 science. What should we spend it on? So I think we should spend it on this. No. We're going to spend it on this. Actually, oh, it's so hard to choose. Well, let's figure out as we build our ship. Okay, so let's go into the vehicle assembly building, and we're going to build our Mun Flyby. Now, in this game, the Mun is the equivalent of the moon and is the first of two of Kerbin's moons. Okay, so we're going to start with our command pod, as usual. Add a parachute and some science. We're going to get we're going to have a barometer, a thermometer, and a mystery goo. And then we're going to put a heat shield under thermal, over there, and then a decoupler. So this is going to be our craft coming home. And then we're going to need some fuel. Okay, so I've just grabbed my Kerbal Space Program Delta V map, which is very handy. And we're going to need 860 meters per second of Delta V to get into the Mun, to get a Mun Flyby. So I think if we put the Terry engine on this amount of fuel in vacuum, that's going to give us 2124 meters per second. So I think that should be pretty good, but just to be safe, let's add, oh, and then we're going to need something to get back to. So, okay, so let's just add some more fuel. That will give us 2450, should suffice. Okay, so we have our ship, and then we are going to want a decoupler again. So this is going to be our second stage. It's going to bring us to the Mun and back. And then we're going to need some more fuel. And then let's do a similar design as last time with a swivel engine. And then some radial decouplers with some fuel tanks on them. And then some aerodynamic surfaces. And then some struts. We're going to need to add some. Okay, so far this is looking pretty good. Let's make sure we check our staging. So we're going to get a healthy amount of fuel up here. Okay, good. This seems pretty good. I think we're ready to. Okay, so then let's put some launch. Oh, wait. We forgot something. We forgot our fins. So let's go into aerodynamics, fin. We can go three fins. And then put, we don't need 3 launch stability enhancers. 2 will work fine. And then we want to make sure we check our staging. we're going to want to do that staging. Light our bottom engines, and then do our launch stability enhancers, and then do that, and then, oh, this should go here too. Yep, like that. Great. Okay. And then we're going to want to go to crew. Jebediah again. We like him. Then anything else we're going to need? I don't think so. Oh, actually, we could grab some batteries, because sometimes, so in this game power is modeled, but sometimes, and so your craft uses power to like survive, so sometimes you're going to need batteries to, the craft has a little bit of onboard power, but you're going to sometimes need to add batteries to supply power. Okay, I think that's going to be it. So let's save our, or no, let's not create a new craft, let's save, and then launch this. And then it says, craft has too many parts. The vehicle assembly building cannot support vessels over 30 parts. So that means that we're going to have to leave and upgrade the vehicle assembly building, which we can do. So now the vehicle assembly building can support 255 parts. And if I upgrade it again, I can have unlimited parts. And then any other buildings we're going to want to upgrade? Not yet. Okay, so if we go back into the vehicle assembly building, we have our ship, launch, and now it'll let us launch. Perfect. So we wait for it to load. Okay, so now once we've loaded it in, we're going to press T for SAS, Z for full throttle minus a little bit, space to light the engines, and then space again to let go of the craft, and then watch it launch away. So again, once we're going to want to head straight up until we reach about 100 meters per second, and then we're going to want to start turning to the right with the D key. And the reason why we turn to the right actually is because Kerbin rotates, which has its day-night cycle, as do all planets. And so it so when we turn to the right, the rotation of Kerbin gives us a little boost. And then if we were to turn to the left, say, it would be a similar process. It's just that the rotation to the would have us like a anti-boost. It would be like a harm, kind of. So okay, so now we're just going to want to keep turning a little bit because we're still pretty high in the atmosphere, so turning drastically would be a little dangerous or risky. Oh, okay, so we're going to keep turning, and then I'm going to want to align our craft with the okay, so now we've run out of fuel, so we're going to stage Z, and then we're going to keep our craft actually at around 45 degrees until we have our little flaming effects go away. And the flaming effects are nothing to worry about. We have relatively decent fireproofing on this craft. So then, right at about here, I'm going to go over to 90 degrees, and I'm going to wait, and I'm going to check the map view. And our map view says we have an apoapsis of 141,000 meters, and so I think we're just going to burn now until our fuel runs out on the first stage, which it just did. So now we're going to separate and light the next engine, but we're not really going to throttle much. So then we're going to go back to the map view, and then we're going to time warp until we're closer to the apoapsis. Remember, if you need a refresher on how to get into orbit, my last video is a great guide for that. So then we're going to full throttle and then move straight to the side. And then we can check to see that my craft has disappeared. Oh, we just zoomed out a lot. Okay, so here we go. We're throttling this way, and we're at full throttle. And well, this might take a while, so we can do some physics warping. And as you can see, our craft is getting closer to the apoapsis, so that's an indicator that we should have started burning later for most efficiency, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now we have our periapsis. So we can check to see that it's above Kerbin. Great. So now we can check we've only used 1,409, or we have about half of, we've only used about half of our fuel, which is good because we're going to need to get into the Mun's sphere of influence. Okay, so now it's time to talk about intercepts. So here's our orbit right now, and we want to get to the Mun, which is right here. So what I like to do is orient the Mun at noon, and then you're going to want to click on, oh, okay, so you want to tell the game that the Mun is your destination. So if you click on the Mun and press Set as Target, it'll now interpret that you want to head to the Mun. Okay, so what you want to do is, with the Mun at noon on the clock, whatever you want to call it, click on your orbit at around maybe 3, and then press Add Maneuver. Or I guess 4 is more like it. Anyway, so now you've added a maneuver. Now a maneuver is basically like, if I were to burn here, where would I end up? So right now my burn is not really, I'm not going to burn in any direction because I haven't told it which direction to burn. But let's say I want to burn prograde. So if I drag the prograde key, the key out, so now this is, if I were to burn 448.3 meters per second prograde, I would end up here. Well, that's not really close to the Mun, so if I keep burning prograde, okay, well now if I burn 750, I'd end up here. Okay, what if I burned a little more? Okay, I'd end up here. And so you want to drag it till about the apoapsis is at the Mun's orbit. Okay, so now it tells us that if we were to burn here, our projected orbit would be this dotted line, and our closest approach would be these two little arrow thingies. So the Mun would be here, and we would be here. So that's not really what we want. So let's click. So if you click on the little ring of the maneuver, you can sort of adjust it. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to adjust it until I get what's called If you see this, it shows me if it gives me a periapsis near the Mun, that means I'm going to have a Mon Encounter. Okay, so now that I have Mon Encounter, I'm going to click on the Mun and press Focus View. This basically centers on the Mun. Okay, great. So you can see this is going to be our projected flyby of the Mun, which is perfect. That's really all we need to do. So I'm not really going to mess with that. If I wanted to land on the Mun, I'd probably move this a little closer to the Mun so it would be closer just in general. So so we've created our, okay, so, and if you want to return back to your ship view, you're just going to press the little tilde key underneath escape, and now we're going to focus on our ship. Okay, so this is going to be our projected burn. So now we want to execute this burn. So how do we do that? Well, if we go back out of map view, we can see that on the nav ball there's this blue maneuver marker. And that basically is what direction you want to maneuver. Because sometimes you might want to maneuver mostly prograde, but then a little radial, and so then it gets a little confusing. So this just basically tells you where to aim for the maneuver. Now, as Jebediah levels up, we're going to be able to lock to the maneuver, which is going to be really useful. But for now, we can only lock to prograde, retrograde, and stability assist. Okay, so down here we have some basic facts about our maneuver. It says the maneuver is going to happen in 2 minutes and 23 seconds, and the burn time is going to be 44 seconds. So the way we want to do it is in theory, we want to burn, we want to deplete, we want to push all of our energy at the burn, or at the maneuver spot. But this isn't really possible because our engine can only throw out so much energy at a time. So we're going to burn half before the maneuver and half after the maneuver. So if our burn time is 44 seconds, we're going to want to burn 22 seconds before the maneuver. So I'm going to just I'm going to quick save first. Always want to quick save. And I'm going to time warp to just before the maneuver. Maybe about 30 seconds before the maneuver. Okay, so now we're at 1 minute, 50, 40, 30. Okay, that'll be pretty good. So I'm going to lock to prograde, although I should be locking to the maneuver. And then once I get to 22 seconds, I'm going to press Z for full throttle. So now if we go back to map view, we can see that our orbit is changing. And as we burn our maneuver, it's going to match this orange dotted line. So this right here represents our maneuver progress. So a full bar means you haven't burned any, and empty means you've burned it all. And then this tells you how much meters per second you are left to burn. So right now we're about a third of the way through, and I'm just going to keep my eye on the map view so I know when to stop. Okay, so going good so far. And as the apoapsis raises, it's going to raise faster and faster, so I'm going to prepare to stop the maneuver. Okay, that's pretty good. So I was within 2.5 meters per second of the projected maneuver, so that's good. So I'm going to click this little check button to exit out of the maneuver, and now now you can see we're en route to the Mun. So if we click on the Mun again and press Focus View, we can see that this is our actual current encounter, which is good. That's what we want. And then you can see, if you look at the map view, right now our orbit is this little green line, and we're going to go and go and go, and then we're going to intercept with the Mun, and then we're going to do some stuff around the Mun, and then we're going to end up in this purple orbit. And then this purple orbit will be in forever until we pass by the Mun again. And so what's happening is that the Mun gravity is, okay, so in this game, each planet or moon has what's called a sphere of influence. And if you're close enough to that planet, you're within its sphere of influence, which basically means that that planet or moon has the most gravitational pull on you compared to the other planets. So for example, if I was close enough to the Mun would be pulling on me more than Kerbin, though Kerbin still pulls on me significantly. Okay, so now this is going to be what's called the Mon Encounter, which is where we first enter the Mun's sphere of influence. So what I want to do is I want to time warp. And, okay, so I'm going to turn off SAS because, I'm going to turn off SAS because it's not really going to be useful while we're cruising through space. And I'm just going to check on my ship. We're all good. And so if I go to the map view, I'm going to time warp up until our Mon Encounter. So I can see us fly away from Kerbin. And so now, okay, so if I stop time warping, right now we're at about here. So we've gone from here up to here. And now, as you can see, as I time warp, the Mun is following its orbit, and this is going to be our predicted path, and then eventually we're going to meet right about now. And then it's time, okay, so I'm going to stop time warping, but when you run into an encounter, it will stop time warping, it'll go to time warp times 50 for you automatically. Okay, so now, as you can see, I'm in the sphere of influence of the Mun. And if you want, we can look at it. It's right there. Hallelujah. Okay, so if we don't do anything, we're just going to fly on right past the Mun and back into Kerbin's orbit, which is what we want. But if we wanted to land on the Mun, we would have to make this into an orbit. And we're going to talk about that in the next video. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, since we're above the Mun, in space high above the Mun is a new biome. So time for some science. So I'm going to take the materials study. 100 science, nice. I'm going to take the barometer. 48 science, nice. The temperature. 32 science, nice. The mystery goo back here. 40 science, nice. A crew report. 20 science, nice. I'm going to EVA. And then I'm going to take a EVA report, 32 science, nice. And then I'm going to board. And then, well, I'm going to activate SAS just to be safe. And then we're going to time warp to our Mun escape, which is right here. So, as you can see, we've now flown by the Mun, so we've achieved our contract parameters. So we should have gotten a flux of income. And so now we're going to just time warp right on past the Mun. I can go a little faster. Wee. And now we're leaving the Mun's sphere of influence. Okay, so now the Mun is far enough away from us for Kerbin to have more of an effect on our energy than the Mun. Okay, so now it's time to go home. So if you remember, when we got into orbit the first time, we went to our apoapsis and then we burned retrograde to lower our periapsis to within the atmosphere so we could slow down. It's the same exact principle here, except this time our apoapsis is much higher than our periapsis, which is going to be helpful. So, which means if you were to, say, burn at the periapsis retrograde, then you have to lower this all the way down to Kerbin. But if you were to burn at the apoapsis, then you would only have to lower this, boop. So it's much more efficient to burn retrograde at the apoapsis. Okay, so let's time warp to the apoapsis. Okay. So now we've time warped at the apoapsis, and you can see we're focused on the Mun still, which we don't really want. So let's focus on our ship with the tilde key underneath escape. Okay, so now we're at the apoapsis. So what I'm going to do is find Kerbin right there, and then I'm going to hold retrograde, have Jebediah hold retrograde for us, and I'm just going to press Z, but then go to map view, so I know where our periapsis. Okay, great. So I burned too much. So to make up for this, I'm just going to burn prograde to raise the orbit so we're within the atmosphere, not really crashing into Kerbin. We don't want to do that. Well, we do, but like the more atmosphere in the way, the safer it will be. So I'm just going to hold shift, because that will put our orbit in, or it'll burn in, okay, so our Kerbin periapsis is now 38,000 meters. Perfect. So now I'm going to go back out of the map view, press T to unactivate SAS, and I'm going to go to map view, and then I'm going to time warp to Kerbin. Now, one thing you can do is you can click on the map, and then press warp here. Or you can click on your orbit and press warp here. So I'm going to do that. And it's going to automatically time warp me and stop me when I want. So there's Kerbin. Woo-wee. Okay, so now I'm going to check our orbit. And it shouldn't have changed since we didn't make any firings or run into any atmosphere. So we're still on track to enter the atmosphere. So I'm just going to quick save. And then I'm going to separate our stages. So with the space key, goodbye. Okay, so now, and I'm just going to close the doors because I like the doors closed. Don't really know why. And then I'm going to do some more time warping just till we run into the atmosphere. So right now we're 1.7 million kilometers above the atmosphere, and now we're at about 1 million kilometers, or 1 million meters, sorry. And we're getting closer and closer and closer. And okay, now we are in the atmosphere. Okay, so we're in the atmosphere, so I'm going to activate T for SAS and then hold retrograde. And this is just going to make sure our heat shield is entering the atmosphere first. And then, well, we can time warp until we get some flame effects, as we usually do. Okay, so now we have our flame effects. So we're just going to wait until our flame effects stop. Now, last time when we entered orbit, we were going at around 2,200 meters per second. But now we're going at around 3,200 meters per second, which is significantly faster. And the reason for this is because we had to burn to get to the Mun, right? Which basically just gave us more speed. And, well, we never really got rid of most of that speed, so we still have it. So we're just gonna have to slow down a little bit more to get to Kerbin, which is fine. Okay, so now we could just wait until our speed reaches slows down, our flamey effects go away, and our parachute little icon turns white, and then we can know to activate the parachute. And then we hold retrograde because that will make Jebediah keep our craft steady. If we were to instead, well, we don't necessarily have to hold retrograde because our craft is pretty aerodynamic in its own right, and will just hold steady itself because the way our heat shield and stuff is designed. But just to be safe, we'll hold retrograde. Okay, so now we've shaved off around 300 meters per second. Pretty good. And as we get lower and lower into the atmosphere, we're going to shave off a speed at a quicker and quicker rate. So now, when you're designing a craft, you're going to want to have a Kerbal Space Program Delta V map. And I will include a link to this in the description, but it's really handy to just have a printout and keep by your desk or your computer or whenever you want to play Kerbal Space Program, because whenever you're planning a mission, it's just extremely important to know how much Delta V you need to get to each stage in your mission, so you don't plan an extensive mission and then run out of fuel midway and like, ah, crap, I got to start over. Okay, so now we've shaved off about almost 800 meters per second, so that's pretty good. Still quite a ways to go. But if we look at the map view, we've slowed down enough, or our apoapsis has lowered from all the way up here to down here, which is pretty good. Now, if the atmosphere suddenly went away, or if we were suddenly outside of the atmosphere, then we would be in this orbit, and we would go around again, and then we would come back in. So that technique is called aerobraking, where you use the atmosphere to slow down, but not necessarily land. But in this case, we want to land, so. Oh, now, one thing you might have noticed is if you look up at the altitude, we're actually increasing in altitude. We're now at 51,000 meters, and our flame effects are going down. And that's basically because our periapsis wasn't low enough for us to completely stop, which is perfectly fine. So we're just going to have to go around on another pass. So I'm going to time warp some more. Until we get out of Kerbin's atmosphere, because you can only physics warp in the atmosphere. Okay, so now we're in space, so I'm gonna time warp normally. Woo 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 woo. Woo 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 woo. Okay, so we're time warping still. Oh, and it's auto-saving for us. And then, okay, so now we're about to re-enter the okay, so we just entered the atmosphere again. So we're going to continue to hold retrograde, and then maybe do some physics warping until we get some flamey effects. So now we have 2,500 meters per second, which is 700 meters per second less than the last time. So hopefully we land on Kerbin this time. But if not, that's okay. We can always, we're going to shave off speed eventually until we can enter the atmosphere. So now we have our flamey effects, so I'm going to stop physics warping just to be safe. And yeah, so our craft is, here we go. So now we're just going to wait until we slow down. So we're actually slowing down about one meter per second or so, which is fine. I mean, we're still lowering in altitude, so that's that speed of decrease is gonna increase as we get down further into the atmosphere, which is what we want. So if we go to the map view, we can see our apoapsis lowering. And once our apoapsis gets to within the atmosphere, or suborbital, then we know that that means that this is going to be the attempt that we land. And as you can see, we haven't really hit our periapsis yet, so the chances that so when you hit the periapsis, that means that your altitude is going to start increasing because the periapsis is the lowest point. But before the periapsis, you're going to keep decreasing. So our speed is going to drop significantly. So as you can see, we've already dropped 100 meters per second. Which is what we want. Okay. Oh, so beautiful. Oh, and if you want more detailed information about your specific orbit while you're in the flight screen, if you look down in the lower left corner, you have information about your apoapsis. So our apoapsis is currently at 42 kilometers, and our periapsis is at negative 143 kilometers. So if we look at our map view, we can see what that means. Our periapsis is within the surface of Kerbin, is like right around here. So as you can see, this is going to be we're going to crash into Kerbin, or we're going to land on Kerbin somewhere around here. Good thing we're going to have our parachute. So, we're bleeding off speed significantly now, which is good. Still not safe enough to launch our parachute, though. And there's a large ocean beneath us. Barely any land in sight, which is fine. I mean, if you look at Kerbin's general topography, the map view is very beautiful. I really like the view on the map view. Like, this is like one giant ocean, and then this is like one giant piece of land, and then back here is nighttime, so you can't really see, but then you have the giant ocean again. Okay, so now we've bled off around 1,200 meters per second, so, and our flamey effects are going down, so we're definitely going to be landing this round, and it should be relatively soon. As you can see, our prograde marker our retrograde marker has started to move up, which basically means that we're now falling more than moving sideways, which is what we want. So now we can see our flamey effects have gone away, and our parachute is white, so I'm going to press the space bar to activate the parachute. There it goes. And then we can do some physics warping to get us down quicker. Physics warping with a large craft can be especially dangerous, but with smaller crafts, it's not as dangerous. What happens is what's called the Kraken comes, and it's basically like a problem that the game registers, or like the game registers an explosion in your craft for some reason, and it wouldn't have happened if you were on normal speed. That's basically what the Kraken is. Okay, so now we have landed, and I'm pretty sure this is the same. We've already taken samples from this biome, but we can see to be safe. So if I right-click on him on Jebediah and take an EVA report, it says I would get 0 science, so that means we've already done our this biome, which is fine. So I'm gonna board, and oh wow, we're underwater. Ooh. Okay, so now we're going to recover the vessel. I always like to guess how much science I've earned when I press the recover vessel button. Okay, so we earned 296 science, which means we now have a total of 494. Great. I'm gonna press next. We have $1.23 million. That's pretty good. And Jebediah gained some experience, but is not yet leveled up, which is fine. Okay, so now we're going to go into mission control and see what contracts are available. We have Explore Kerbin, rendezvous 2 vessels in orbit of Kerbin. Yeah, I don't really want to do that. Oh, I can't say no. Okay. If you need to make money, I would definitely recommend the ferry tourists to safely to their destination and back. So, for example, this guy, this contract would give us 39,000 plus 6,500 plus 6,500, so about 52,000 times 2, because there's 2 of them. So we would get about $100,000 from bringing these 2 guys to orbit and back. And it's also a good way to practice your skills of getting into orbit. So if I take the Explore Kerbin contract, conduct observational studies of the Mun. I'm looking for a contract that says land on the Mun, but that hasn't happened yet. Whatever. Okay. So now we need some way to. We're going to probably want to spend our 494 science. So if I go into research and development, I think we're going to get some heavy rocketry. We're going to get some fuel systems. We're going to get so as you can see, this row and everything past it we can't unlock because this is the final row we can unlock because the research and development building hasn't been upgraded, and it needs to be upgraded to allow us to research more science. Okay, or to research more parts. So, I think we're gonna get some space exploration for the rover wheels. Definitely some landing, aerodynamics, advanced construction. Yeah, some advanced construction. We still have 4. Okay, so that'll be it for the science. And so yeah, in the next episode, we will learn how to land on the Mun, build our craft, launch, land, and hopefully return. So I will see you in that episode. Have a nice day.